So if somebody from the council will just let me know when to get started, I'm good to go.
I think you can probably start now.
Okay, thank you. Let me set my timer so I don't talk for 2.5 hours. So good morning, everybody. My name is Erik James Montgomery, and I am one of the many presenters today. I'm going to start my slideshow, and let's get that started. Let's go, go, go. All right, so hopefully you can hear me clearly. If you can't, please just unmute yourself at any time and just let me know what's happening. So again, my name is Erik James Montgomery. I am a fine art photographer, a photo educator, and an artivist. An artivist is somebody who uses their art to provoke change, whether it's socially, economically, whatever category it could be, to create change in the communities and the world that we live in. I've been a photographer now for 35 years. Originally, my first art practices were breakdancing and graffiti way back in the 1980s when I lived in East Orange, New Jersey. And now I'm in Camden, New Jersey, which is about an hour and a half away. I'm really 2 minutes away from Philadelphia. So when I leave my studio, I can actually see Philadelphia just a couple of blocks away. Over the years, I've explored various aspects of photography, from hip hop photography to portraiture to photo education. Now I'm doing all of the above, but all under my nonprofit organization, which I will talk about in a minute. What you see here on the screen is a triptych or three photos of myself over the years. And I knew at a very early age, at the age of 18, that I wanted to be a photographer. The interesting thing is, I did not have a professional camera. There weren't any photo classes around back then. So I really had to learn on my own initially before I went to college and all of that. Um, so as I'm sharing with all of you, you're going to hear my journey and you're going to hear how I chose my career paths. And then towards the end, I'll open it up for Q&A. So, like I said earlier, I started doing photography when I turned 18, when I graduated high school. And initially, I went to community college in Newark. There's Essex County College. The beautiful thing about community college is, especially now, you can get all of your general ed classes cleared out before you go to a 4-year college if you choose to do that. There's some people that's going to a 2-year college and going right to their career paths. There's some people that are just circumventing college altogether and they're still making great careers. So just know there's not one way to choose from to make it in this career that you may choose in the arts. There's many different ways to get to where you want to be. So at first I went to community college, and the beautiful thing about Essex County College was that that was the first time I went into a dark room. If there's anybody on the line now that's into photography at all, darkroom photography is a beautiful experience. You actually get your hands wet in chemicals and you're exposing pictures yourself. And when I first went into the darkroom, my mind was blown. And I knew that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Later on, way after I became an adult and built a family and everything, I decided to go back to college. So it was definitely like a 24-year gap between community college in the very early 90s and then in, I would say, about 10 years ago when I finally went back to school. I went to Teachers College in Columbia University in New York City, and I studied what they call responsive pedagogy. And that's just a fancy way of saying I have cool ways to teach people art. So I love that experience. And with that, there's many scholarships that's accessible to people. So you don't always have to pay out of your pocket. There's a lot of money out there. And then lastly, Academy of Art University, which is located out in California. I did their online classes for my BFA and my master's program. And that really worked well for me because that did not impede on my professional career, teaching and doing murals and things of that nature. So I could take a class 2 o'clock in the morning if I needed to and still pass. Over the years, I had created a few organizations and businesses. EJM Photography is where I do a lot of events and sell my art and things of that nature. EJM Foundation in the middle is a nonprofit organization. And if you don't know, a nonprofit organization is an organization that raise money for a cause. So my cause is to allow young people who may not have access to expensive cameras and photo education to take my classes for free. And that's whether it's the tri-state area here or later on you'll hear about me talking about South Africa later and the things that I've done in that country. And then lastly, as of recent, I created my own gallery. It's called JPEG, and it stands for Jersey Photography Education Gallery. And it's right here in Camden, and people of all ages are welcome to come and learn photography, whether it's darkroom photography, film photography, or digital photography. So, and I hope you can see the titles. Okay. So my many forms of art I will delve into. One of it is called hip hop and hip hop dance. I've always been into hip hop since I was a child. So it's natural for me to gravitate to creating and documenting that whole hip hop culture. I don't do it as much as I used to when I was younger, but this is a representation of hip hop dance photography that I create. The good thing about being involved in hip hop and then creating photographs under that moniker is that I can kind of anticipate the movements that's going to happen. And as you see in this triptych, I was able to create these photos at the apex of each one of her moves. I also do headshot portraits. I love creating portraits of people because I love to see people at their best. And so many times when I'm creating portraits of people, I will always hear, I hate taking photos or I take horrible photos. But as you can see here, these people are looking their best. So in that line of photography, it's great to be a people person, but it's also great to be kind of like honest. So I share with people like I don't like taking pictures myself, and guess what? I'm a photographer. But we're going to overcome any insecurities that we have, and we're going to make sure you have a great picture. And a lot of times, just disarming them that way, you can create great photographs. So for a period of time, I was doing a lot of weddings, but after a while, that passion just left me. I had one too many bridezillas, and I said, "This is not for me." Um, for the most part, there's a lot of great clients that I've had, but just know when I talk about being a people person, you really have to be a people person to be a wedding photographer. Typically, you're working from 7 a.m. to like midnight, no breaks, may or may not eat dinner. You're always on. And if the guests are giving you any type of shade, you can't reciprocate it. So you always have to be super professional no matter what. So if you're the type of person that's confrontational, please, oh please, don't think about being a wedding photographer. Financially, and I could double back on this towards the end on my Q&A. There's people that's making a great living being wedding photographers. I have a good friend. His only passion is wedding photography, and he makes about $100,000 a year just doing wedding photography. To do that, you really have to build up the clientele and a great body of work, and we'll talk about that later on in my presentation. So, with my personal work as a fine art photographer, which means a lot of the art that I create is artwork with a message. It's artwork that you may see at a gallery or some type of event where I get a chance to talk about the meaning of my images. Some of my artwork are purchased by collectors, or you may see it again at a museum or a gallery. So over the years, I've created a lot of work. Most of my work have a lot of meaning to it. I really touch on the topics of race, racism, and racial reconciliation. I like to confront things that people try to shy away from because these are the things that we need to do to bring unity for all people. So real quick, African unity, what we see is five young men supporting each other, not fighting each other for all one common goal. In the middle, the picture is called American Teenager. And to me, a lot of teenagers get labeled just because of the way they look or the way they act, or maybe even from where they come from. Right now, Camden has a horrible reputation, and we're trying to get out of that negative cloud. But as soon as people hear Camden, or you're from Newark, or if they see your skin color, or maybe you have a speech impediment, they may think something negative about it. So what I did was I put a lot of labels. Some are quote unquote positive, some are quote unquote negative. But what we now see is a mummified person. We don't know if this person is male or female, or we don't know if this person is happy or sad. We don't know this person's background at all. All we see is a mummified person. They can't see out and we can't see in. And that's unfortunate for a lot of teenagers that I work with and even people that I'm meeting for the first time. Lastly, on this triptych, we see a young lady who reminds us of the famous painting Mona Lisa. And to me, the Mona Lisa was the first Kardashian. She became famous for doing absolutely nothing, right? So, in all the years of me studying art history, very little is known about Mona Lisa. But I did photograph a young lady from my hometown of East Orange, and I named this photograph Monisha Lichet to give a more cultural aspect to that painting. We see this young lady graduated from college, HBCU to be specific. At the time, she was looking for a job. We see her city in the background, but she has a smile and an air of confidence. I just want to show that aspect of art being reworked and remixed in that aspect. So this image is called I Too Cry for America. This image was created and inspired by a poem by the great poet Langston Hughes. He was a part of the Harlem Renaissance about 100 years ago. And in this, we see three people of color crying tears for America. And they're blindfolded, talking about all of the injustices that happen, not only to people of color in America, but really to a lot of different people groups. The interesting thing about that image is I know that a lot of my images may never be sold because it's really heavy work. Like this is something that you may not want to put in your living room, right? But some people do. That speaks to knowing your audience. I know that my audience is not everybody, but I'll go after the somebodies that really track with my work. Hence the picture on the right. That gentleman, his name is Chancellor Dr. Anthony Tillis. He is the leader here at Camden, Rutgers Camden, and he's an art collector. And he actually bought that piece and he put it in his office. So for a few things, there's a lot of layers there. One, fine art do sell, so you can make a living as being a fine art photographer. Secondly, I'm really honored that he put it in his office because he has people that are students and the governor and other dignitaries going into his office, and he's making these people confront this image and making it a conversation piece. So I'm really honored that he did that. So, if you're familiar with with Camden at all, there's a very historical family called the Cooper family. They have the Cooper Hospital named after them, Cooper River, so on and so forth. But at one point, they owned slaves. And if you didn't know, in New Jersey, there were many slaves that were bought and sold. Don't think that slavery only happened in the South, it happened in all of the colonies, including New Jersey. So I was hired by the Historical Society here in Camden to create a series of portraits from 17 names that we researched of these former slaves. I contacted people who lived in Camden, and we sourced clothing from the 17 and 1800s, and we photographed them on the former plantation right here in Camden, which is called Pomona Hall. That series was really groundbreaking because it brought light to something that was swept under the rug for the past 300 years. I also create photographs talking about my faith. And in this picture, it's called mustard seed faith. Sometimes I would take scriptures and create photographs of them. Eventually, I want to create an illustrated Bible where I take photographs and you will be able to connect scripture to the photographs. I do a lot of documentary photography, meaning that I will see events happening and I won't disturb what I see, but I will document that image and then share that image, not to exploit the person, but to really explain their situation. So the next two photos, you're going to see documentary photos. In this image, for a while, I worked at Cooper Hospital trying to get people who were battling addiction to get into what we call recovery, so they won't have to be plagued with addiction anymore. This one person overdosed on heroin over 120 times in 1 year. Amazing. But he was able to go into recovery and now he has his own job and doing really well. But I showed him this picture and that picture helped him to actually turn his life around. So you never know the impact your pictures will have on somebody else. This picture is called Happy Birthday Anyhow, and he is a person who is dealing with homelessness. And exactly the way you see him in this picture is the way that he was when I approached him, asked him if I could take his picture. He obliged, and I created this photograph of him. That day was his actual birthday. His friends who were also homeless took their last few dollars to buy those balloons that you see. So that photo is really personal to me because after creating that photograph, I started learning more about how easy it is for many people to be homeless. Most families are only 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless. So it really brings it home to many of us, even here on this call now. Exhibitions. As a fine art photographer, I love to exhibit my work. On the left, I do self-produced exhibitions where I would take my own money, find a location, and make that an exhibition like we see here on the left, here in Camden, New Jersey. But then on the right, sometimes art institutions or museums would invite me to showcase my artwork as we see here in the Stedman Gallery. I love, in all caps, teaching young people of all ages how to do photography. Whether they're in pre-K, as we see in the photo in the middle, that young girl was 3.5 years old holding a $2,000 camera. I love it. I love teaching. And then we see teenagers on either side of her. I teach as young as 3 years old, all the way up to senior citizens and everybody in between. I also give my students the ability to showcase their work, whether it's in student-led exhibitions like we see here in Philadelphia. By the way, the young lady that's talking near that artwork, she went on to learn at Columbia University, and now she's a professional photographer. And then on the right, I also like to teach darkroom photography. I also love to do public art. And that's when you create artwork for the public art spaces. A lot of times people in marginalized communities, they may not go to the Museum of Modern Art or the Newark Museum, but they may walk down to their local bodega. And if we could put artwork in those pathways, now they're engaging with art for free. So 5 years ago, I was hired by the Bloomberg Foundation, and I worked with several organizations to create this series of photographs called Camden is Bright, Not Blight. Those images were put on abandoned buildings throughout the city, again, engaging art with the city for free. And then coming in for a landing, 3 years ago, I was blessed to be able to go to South Africa, where I was able to teach adult photographers how to do photography and how to exhibit their work. And then I also taught these group of young people how to do photography. The interesting thing about this group of individuals, they lived on a compound where every person there, from the infants all the way up to the senior citizens, all had HIV. Looking at them, you could not tell that, right? But they all had a great time learning photography, but then they also created this huge body of work where they did portraits of every person who lived on that compound. That was probably one of my most cherished moments as a photo educator, to be able to do that and to work with that dynamic group of people. So, in closing, I just want to have a few levels of reflections and pearls of wisdom before I open it up for Q&A. I want everybody, no matter what your art practice is, to discover your quote unquote art voice and strive to be excellent in your respective art practice. What does that mean? Don't try to be the next anybody. Right now, Jean-Michel Basquiat is probably the most famous artist in the whole world, right? And you start to see a lot of people replicate his work. And that's fine to like learn and try to like help understand your own work, but try to figure out a way to create on your own particular style, right? Your own particular way of demonstrating who you are as an artist. And it may not happen overnight, but when it does happen, definitely explore that and share that at the highest level. And then also be very proficient in your art practice. Always strive to create a huge body of work. Try to learn as much as you can and try to share as much as you can, whether it's in social media, on your own exhibits, whether it's at school, and even on your own professional. For those of you who are thinking about what art education looks like after high school, it comes in many facets. There's school, whether it's college or trade, and that's one level. And in that, there's many different levels of funding for that. There's self-guided learning, where you go to the library, you go to YouTube University, you talk to the people who are already doing what you may want to do, and you ask them for guidance, right? And then there's good old hands-on experience. Definitely getting your hands dirty, right? The more that you make mistakes and you learn from those mistakes, the better artist you will be. Try not to think that all of this is going to happen overnight. But if you're committed to your art form and if you're committed to yourself, I guarantee you, you're going to get there. Find a mentor. Super important. So if you're a photographer, if you're a visual artist, if you're a musician, find somebody who's doing something find an artist who's already doing what you want to do. Contact them on Instagram. If they don't respond to you immediately, follow up after a week or so, because sometimes we become very busy. We have greater intentions to respond, but sometimes we forget. But once you find a mentor, whether it's your teacher or somebody locally or somebody long distance, make sure your parents know that you have this adult connection, super important. But then secondly, try to glean as much as you can from that person, but always be thankful for their time and their expertise, right? And then pass on that information to somebody who's younger than you, and that's how we reciprocate what we have learned. And never, ever, ever give up your dream of being an artist. I am at 35 years of doing what I'm doing, and I've had many hard times of not having finances, not knowing where my next gig or event was going to come from, not knowing if what I'm doing really matters. But now I'm so glad that I never gave up. I hear people tell me what my artwork means to them. I hear people tell me having a gallery in the inner city makes a huge difference. So know that your life and your art has a ripple effect that's going to touch everybody. So please never give up on your dream and never give up on yourself. All right? And I'm right on time for Q&A. So if anybody have any questions for me, the council members will fill that. I guess if you want to unmute yourself or if there's anything in the chat, I have a few minutes to hear anything that you want to share. Now, all of you don't talk at the same time. Like, really pace yourself, right?
I guess I just wanted to say something. I really appreciated like what you said about never giving up on like your dreams of being an artist because I find that so often like I'm someone who wants to pursue a creative career and I'm going to be like majoring in like an artistic field at college. So um I feel like lots of people will say that like, oh, it's kind of a waste of your time, why don't you choose something else? But it really is a valuable career. And I know that a lot of people, a lot of our council members can speak to that as well. But I really appreciated that you said that.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I will quickly share my contact information. If you want to screenshot it, that's totally fine. And then I'll pass the mic to my colleague. Here's my contact information. Feel free to email me. You can follow me on Instagram. My website is also listed. I'll leave this up for a few more seconds.
I actually did also have a question.
Okay,
Um,
great.
so when you were showing like the picture of like those portraits that you had kind of plastered on the walls of like a building in Camden, um, like how were you able to get that to happen? Like how are you able to get like the permits and everything to make like large scale like public art like that come to life?
That's a great question. So the best way to do it is to get permission from whoever owns the building. So if it's on the side of an abandoned building, trying to find out who owns the building. Sometimes, depending on what the building is, you could place your artwork up there temporarily. So all the artwork that I did, it can easily be removed. It's not permanent. Any permanent murals that I do, I have to get permission from the city or whoever owns the building. But just have that communication is super important. After doing that, it's also important to talk to your community that you're going to do the artwork with. So what you would do is, especially if you're a young person, you would connect with a mentor or somebody that's an adult. Talk to some community members around, let them know who you are, let them know what you want to do, give them an example of what it would look like. They could give you the green light. They may even say, hey, we would love to help you out financially or give you a hand with buying supplies. And then that way as well, you don't have to worry so much about your artwork being destroyed. When you do artwork without permission, then you're inviting vandals and other people to just destroy your work. So great question.
Thank you for that answer.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be here, but I'm definitely going to pass the mic to my colleague, Christina.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Great, awesome. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Eric. I feel like a little, oh my gosh, I hope my presentation lives up to the great precedent you set. I learned so much. So thank you so much for that. Let me click share here. Let me click play. All right. Well, my name is Christina Sanabria. I am one half of the duo Uno, Dos, Tres, Andres. We make music for kids and families. In the duo, this is the other half, Andres. And forgive me, I'm at a hotel, so maybe folks behind me. So on the left, you see us at a theater in Long Island. And before this picture was taken, it was full of kids um, coming to see us on field trip, thousands of kids. So we perform for students, for families all over the country. We've had the privilege of performing in Latin America and in several countries as well. Um, and so this is me at my college graduation. And I actually, unlike Eric, I did not study anything related to art. My major was Latin American Studies and Spanish. I did not think I was going to do anything related to an artistic field. I then went on to be a classroom teacher. So I have a master's in education. So I was a public school teacher. I never foresaw myself being a full-time performer, a full-time creator. But before that, when I was little, I did Mexican folklorico dancing. If anyone's familiar with that, as a child, I did ballet. This picture is when I was like 7. I was in the Nutcracker in my city several years. So this year I was a soldier at the Nutcracker. And I did theater. I was fortunate enough to my mom signed me up for, acting classes, and I was actually in several productions where kids would come on field trip to see. My first role was the goose in Charlotte's Web. T W double R double I double F double I double C C C or something like that. And but then I kind of moved on once I got to high school, and I started thinking, I don't know if a career in the arts is for me. So but now this is our full-time job. Here we are at an actual public school, performing for 300 kindergarten, first, and second graders. And at parks, at festivals, and I love what I do. I feel so grateful to be able to bring music, language, as our performances are bilingual in Spanish and English, and to bring an intergenerational moment that's educational. And this is what our performances look like. So as you can tell, I have a great job. And here we are actually in 2016 winning the Latin Grammy for Best Children's Album, and in 2024 winning the Grammy for Best Children's Album. So it's been an amazing ride. We are so incredibly grateful, and we also work really hard. On our YouTube channel, we have a wide array of educational videos that teachers all over the country and Spanish speaking world are using to teach early elementary kids everything from social emotional learning. Yo sí puedo means yes, I can do it. So it's a song about being brave. Yo paro, yo pienso is a song about like impulse control, and then as well as like shapes, numbers, letters. We work hand in hand with educators as we see what kind of content they're looking for, and creating it in Spanish for bilingual classrooms all over the country and Spanish speaking. And then we were really fortunate enough to have some of our songs be turned into books. So I don't know if anybody like when you were younger remembers the Scholastic Book Fair. I remember getting like the little Scholastic calendar. Well, now our books have been published by Scholastic, so it's kind of like a super trip for us, and it means a lot for kids to be able to engage with our work, reading. And as an educator and a former teacher, literacy is so important to me, and so it means a lot to be able to offer books for kids and families in Spanish and English. And we're always working on new projects. So recently, a couple years ago, actually, we learned about a podcast accelerator. And I was like, we've never really done a podcast before. It was run by PBS Kids. And we applied, we created a team. And after working really hard during the accelerator, our podcast was actually selected to be turned, our pitch, our demo, our pilot was selected to be turned into an actual podcast. So take a picture, find us wherever you hear podcasts. This podcast is called Jamming on the Job, and it's episodes about jobs, cool jobs. So in it, Andres and I, we're traveling the country with our friend Boombox, and we always run into a problem. And oh no, the problem, how can we continue the show today? Well, as we're talking to people in the community, wherever we are, we meet someone who has a really cool job, whether it's a music therapist or a robotics engineer or a costume designer who helps us solve the problem so the show can go on. So it's a story-based podcast that includes music, that includes really cool sound design, that is also helping kids learn about different jobs that they might want to have and learn as a family, so that grown-ups can be listening with kids. Um, so let me go back to where we were. You might wonder, well, okay, so she did dance when she was little. She did some theater, but then she didn't really study art. She didn't really pursue art. How is this connected? Like, where's the gap? And so, a couple of things that I did in between. And they may seem random, but they really inform my career as an artist. And I'll get to that a little bit more. When I was in high school, I actually was part of the yearbook staff. All 4 years, I ended up being the editor-in-chief of the yearbook. Like, this is totally random, but you know, in that experience, I had hands-on experience in graphic design. I had to manage a staff of writers and photographers and other editors. And so might seem kind of dorky, might seem kind of random, but like the executive skills that gave me and the leadership skills, as well as the technical skills in writing and graphic design, in having an eye for layout and art, serve me to this day, even in my career as a performer and as a musician. After I was a teacher for a few years, I worked at a nonprofit that was in the legal world. And so even though I'm not a lawyer or a paralegal in that job, I did have to read a lot of contracts and a lot of documents that were created by lawyers that weren't exactly legal documents, but that used a lot of legal words. And it helped me become a lot less intimidated by those kinds of that kind of language. And so today, in my day to day, when I'm receiving contracts, when I'm analyzing things, it helps me be able to feel confident and frankly, like, cuts down on the number of hours we may have to hire a lawyer to read every single document, because I have a strong sense of it and I can navigate. So again, something that seems completely unrelated, but is very valuable to me as an artist. It's getting kind of loud. I apologize. And I also worked at a nonprofit in an administrative capacity. So I was I had to work with databases and spreadsheets. And again, you may think, well, but you're singing, you're writing songs for kids, you're putting on concerts for kids. What do spreadsheets have to do with that? Well, we're also keeping track of our contractors, the people that we're paying. So there's bookkeeping involved. We're also keeping track of our finances, of our gigs, and making sure that all of our invoices got paid, that all of the people who owe us money got paid. Um, we're keeping track of so many things, and all of that experience that I had that was completely unrelated to music, art, creation, comes in very handy. So earlier, before this breakout, I was hearing the council talk about the work that you're doing, and as I was hearing you, it's like again, all of those executive skills you're promoting, you're using Canva. So maybe you're a musician, but you're gaining skills to in visual communications. You're networking with each other. You're planning events. You're thinking ahead, and all of those skills that I heard the council members talking about will be valuable to you in your roles as artists, regardless of what your art is. So here's an example. Earlier when we saw the video at the theater, you heard a song that was like Salta, salta, una, dos, tres. So this is the music video. This was before I was actually even in the band. I'm not even in this video, but this was the first time my husband started the band himself. That's why it's called Uno, dos, tres, Andres, not Christina. But and then I kind of slowly got pulled into it as he realized and discovered and saw that I had some creative talent too, right? So, but before that, this is one of our first music videos. And by the way, find us on YouTube. We're close to 4 million subscribers, and with your help, we can get there. Just play. At any rate, this was one of the first times that I really dug in and applied some of those skills. So, Erik was talking about getting permission to display his art. This is another example. I had to, first of all, we had to scout locations. We were looking for a park that had a certain look and feel to film this video. We found it, and I was the one who reached out to the city, figured out who was what the process was for getting permission to hold an event like this at this park. Because as you can see, there were a lot of people there. So filling out all of that paperwork, following up, making sure that all of the T's were, what is it? I's were dotted and T's were crossed. Um, then communicating with our fan base to get people to sign up, sending follow-up messages with parking instructions, with reminders a few days before. One of the things that, for example, the city asked us was to have a bathroom plan, and that's like, of course, as small children, we have to have a bathroom plan. So talking to the local businesses nearby and figuring out where there were bathrooms. I wanted to make sure that the fans that were kind enough to be a part of our video had a good experience. So I had a station with like water and sunscreen, and then communicating with folks afterwards on when the video was coming out. So again, even though this is a music video, there's a lot of logistics planning, and this is called, right, event production that went into it. So again, all of those executive skills came very handy in executing this. So, it's that merger of your creative skills. We haven't even talked about like the creative aspect of it, of like deciding what angles and working with the video editor to make sure that the art portion of it was what we wanted. But in addition to that, all of the production skills that are in the background. I talked about the podcast, and here's Boombox. Well, his real name is Pierce Freelon. He's another Grammy-nominated artist for kids and families, so look him up too as well. And one of the jobs in one of the podcast episodes is wind turbine service technician. See, it's like a wide array of jobs to inspire kids. And then we had the opportunity, we had the vision to turn this podcast into a live show. So here, again, the tablecloth, like who designed the tablecloth, found the vendor. I worked with a graphic designer to to create a scene, and then of course the story. So we had to turn this podcast into a 1 hour show. And how are we going to do it? Which songs were we going to pick? How are we going to make it interactive and engaging for kids? So it's again a lot of combination of your creative and artistic skills and your storytelling skills with kind of the nuts and bolts of now you have to have like a writer and a stage plot, so all of the people at the venue know what technology you need and how many microphones you're going to need, and all of that. So uh, and I want to point y'all's attention. So on stage, there I am on the right. There's Andres in the colorful shirt and the red shoes, and then behind the table is Pierce. And then here down in the corner is a gentleman wearing a gray shirt. Do y'all see him? So that is a sign language interpreter, an ASL interpreter. And the venue was, kind enough to provide an ASL interpreter for the show. And I mention it because that is something that happens not consistently. And the first time someone said to us, "Oh, we're going to have an ASL interpreter at your show. Can you provide information in advance for what they will be interpreting so that it's not like spontaneous?" And I was like, oh my God, and it was a big lift. I had to um, go and look for the lyrics of all the songs, and I had to type it out, and I had to, create a document for this ASL interpreter. I wanted it to be professional because I wanted, to set them up for success. And then I forgot about it. And then a few weeks later, somebody else at a different theater was like, we're going to have an ASL interpreter. Can you please provide a document? I was like, oh my God, where I know I did this document. Where did I save it? Like, what was it called? It was like a few weeks ago. And I had to spend a whole lot of time and energy looking for that document again instead of focusing on our art and our creation. And so, being organized, now I've gotten my act together. I create these documents in advance. I have them organized, labeled. I have them in a single folder on our Google Drive. Because, you're going to, this happens all the time. Someone will send us interview questions, and they'll be pretty similar to interview questions that we've already answered. So now I have like a database of artist statements and answers to frequently asked questions so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Or they'll ask us for marketing materials, and I have it all organized, and I'm not where I was a few years ago. That's like, oh, I know I had that picture somewhere. Is it on my phone? Is it on his phone? I can't. And it was just, a headache every time. So being organized is super important. So, file management is one of the skills that is critical for us to be able to focus as much of our time and energy on actually creating the art, doing the performances, creating those new connections. So, here are some of the others. Deadline management. We have multiple projects going at the same time, all the time, and advancing on each one of them, being, really organized about that. Writing, not only are we writing songs, but we're also writing press releases. We're writing marketing descriptions. We're writing direction notes for maybe the lighting manager so that they can have a sense of what kind of lighting we're going to need for different moods. We're writing all kinds of things, and we want to be emails, professional emails to clients. We have to understand the tone and our audience. QuickBooks is a bookkeeping software, if y'all are not familiar. So accounting, I have to have a general sense of accounting. The fact that there's, different categories, so you have to like categorize every single expense so that you can, if you spend money on a microphone or on cloth, someone was saying that they do fashion design, or on travel, maybe you go to a meeting and you had to pay for parking. All of those are business expenses that, as you get older into that part of your life where you're, filing taxes, that you can learn about how to deduct them so that you can, as you're setting up your business, that's something really important that you're going to have to learn about. Event production, I talked about a little earlier, and as well as like the music video experience, as well as self-produced concerts where we are selling the tickets on our website. We're getting volunteers and friends to help us at our box office if it's self-produced. Video editing, we do a lot of our own video editing, both for our YouTube channel as well as for like social media. Relationship management is a way of saying, keeping in touch with people and keeping people informed that are going to be Erik talked about mentors, and another those are super important. Another kind of person is champions, that maybe they're not mentoring you, they're not spending a lot of time with you, but they're going to go and advocate for you as you're maybe applying for a grant or applying for a gig or a job. Your past customers, you have to have relationship management with them. Your uh, for example, Erik was talking about people who have purchased his work. I'm sure he has a list of past customers so that when he has a new gallery showing, he sends an email blast letting them know that another event is coming up. Certainly, we do as well. So, managing all of those relationships, whether it's someone on your email blast or someone who's, really close to you and you're, sending them annual cards, performing, of course, art directing, where you're giving your graphic designer feedback or your video editor feedback or your photographer feedback. You're not doing the that work yourself, but you're giving them feedback and you're directing the kind of the look and feel of the product you're creating together. Press skills. Uh, I didn't have an appreciation for the skill that it is to be like on live TV on an interview, or to be interviewed on radio, for example. And there are specific skills in terms of how to answer a question succinctly. I don't know if you've ever like heard like politicians or grown-ups, how they're like, you ask them like, um, what happened to the toll on the bridge? And they're like, I'm so glad you asked about that because I'm creating new dog parks. And it's like, wait a minute, I asked you about one thing, but you turned the question around to talk about what you wanted to talk about. And so, as artists, we do that too. People might say, what do you want people to feel at your show? And I'll say like, oh, I want people to feel so excited. Like, for example, one of our songs that turned into a book, boom, I used the question that they asked to mention something that they didn't ask, but that I want audiences to know about. So there's a whole bunch of skills that go into being interviewed and being press ready, which whether you're a performer or any kind of creator, hopefully you will be interviewed at some point, and so they will come in handy. Public speaking, and we've gone around the circle. So a lot of skills go into your career as an artist, have gone into my career as an artist every single day, that at first glance may not even seem like germane, because to creating, um, and then this is what you get, events that the people are that come to and that they're having fun at. Yes, we are having a lot of fun. I love my job. This is a recent show we did, holidays. A client asked us for a holiday themed show, so I had to like put something together. Here it is, and and this is the original photo. So I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about how things come together because we hustle and also because we have a team. So this was actually in my like mom's uh house where we have a green screen set up for when we visit and just like random coats and stuff that we just put on because we knew we needed to create this flyer. But we could not have done this ourselves. I do a little graphic design, I do a little layout, but this is at a level that is, beyond my capacities and is not a good use of my time to create something, this beautiful. We talk to some creators and sometimes they want to do everything themselves. They play all the instruments, they do the mixing, they do the mastering, and that's a choice. And for us, we have found that there are certain things that we and only we can do. I am the only person, and along with Andres, who can do a concert. Somebody else can respond to clients and do the booking. Somebody else can do some of the graphic design. Somebody else can help us with different office tasks, booking our flights and stuff like that. But I'm the only one who can do the show. So how much can we delegate to people on our trusted team? So today our team includes a graphic designer who helps us with like our flyers, as well as animation in case we want to do an animated video. We have booking agents who interface with the theaters directly, and they handle all of the uh, how much to charge and what that negotiation process. So it's off of my shoulders, thank goodness. Um, we have someone who's our social media manager. So honestly, we think it's important to um, respond to comments and messages that we get on social media. Like Eric said, sometimes we get busy, we forget. So we have a social media manager who responds to a lot of things and is on the alert. And if something is like important, he'll ask us. But that means that I and my husband don't have to ourselves be on Instagram making sure we don't have any comments. So we have help for that. And we're so, privileged to be able to have that. Um, Music producers, musicians, accountants, lawyers, photographers, videographers. So we have, a trusted team that we have assembled over the years, um, who help us amplify and do what, focus as much of our energy on what we do best and what we and only we can do. Okay, who's this? Vocal coaching, Megan McCall. Who do I work with? Who does she work with? She works with me and my husband. I did not study in college something related to singing or music. My husband did. He graduated undergrad with a music degree. He got a master's he's a clarinet player. That's his main instrument. He got a doctorate in clarinet. And you know what? He still works with a vocal coach. We both do. And the point I want to make here is about continuing to improve your craft, having respect for your craft. And that means taking lessons and practicing consistently throughout your career. And a few years ago, I just remember I was on a session with Megan and I was like, literally, I'm crying, right? I'm like, when is this gonna be? Like, when am I not gonna have to practice this anymore? She's like, oh, no, never. You're always gonna have to practice it. And I thought, well, maybe it's just because I didn't study music, but no, everybody, even Megan takes classes. So for us, that looks like if we have a big show, she'll do like a 30-minute class before the show with me to make sure that I'm ready. That if we're doing like recording a new album, she will do several classes with her to work through the new songs that we're recording, and be at our best. And it took me a while to kind of wrap my mind around it. But if you think about athletes that are performing at the highest levels, their coaches are in the stands at every game. They continue working with their coaches. So even us as artists, who are making a living full time, it is no it is no sign of like weakness or something to not continue working with a coach to improve our craft. We respect our craft and are always looking to continue improving it. Um, and in addition to, our vocal coach who we work with consistently, we've taken classes in dance, in acting, in clowning, and different skills that come to bear in our work. And that spirit of always learning, always studying to continue improving our craft. Because, and this quote is actually from a professor that my husband had, luck may come, but you need to be ready for it when it comes. Your big break. So that's one thought I want to leave you with. This is a picture that a kindergartner drew, and this was part of a songwriting exercise. Um, when you're in kindergarten, right, it's hard to write words, but you can express yourself through art. And to accompany this, there's a little audio recording of the song they wrote. And I share you because there's as creators who are working full time, there's so many different ways that we have our income stream that comes from so many directions. So touring and doing concerts is the biggest of them. We're also getting income from royalties from streaming. So please find us on Spotify, click play, so we can get some of that royalty streaming. Also, songwriters for commission. We have a project coming up from. We live in Virginia, and the county near us is. The whole region is doing like a disaster preparedness campaign, and they hired us to write a song to go along with this campaign so that families are ready for disaster. Voice acting for other people's YouTube channels, as well as songwriting workshops like the kindergarteners that you just saw, professional development for teachers. So as y'all are thinking about your careers, also be thinking about how you can monetize it in different ways, and it all comes together to make a living. Just a few more thoughts. Be kind. We have had the experience many times where we have a concert and there's, a dude rolling cables, bottom rung, bottom rung. And we try to be kind to every single person that we encounter. And it has happened more than once that a few years later, we're at a theater and we're talking to the head honcho and we're like, oh, how did you find out about us? He was like, oh, do you remember a few years ago at this and that theater? You performed there. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was there. I was a stagehand at the time. Wow. Yeah, and we had a good experience, so I kept you in the back of my mind, and now that I'm the head honcho here, I decided to hire you. And that has happened so often. So, as you are meeting other artists, other people like that are helpers in this world, people change jobs, people go to different organizations, they get raises, they get more responsibility, and they may be in a position to hire you in the future. So everybody that you run into, be kind, and be respectful, and be professional. It's been a bummer. Sometimes we reach out to a photographer we want to work with and we never hear back. It's like, all right, well, I guess we didn't hire you. I guess we didn't give you money. We went with somebody else. So, as much as you can, be professional, because you're an artist, you're a creator, you're running a business. So if you go to the sandwich store and, Google Maps said it was going to be open, but it's not open, they're not opening the door, they didn't get your money. And so in the same way, if somebody is, trying to hire you, trying to work with you, make sure that you're monitoring all of those, all of your email, or your places where people might be reaching out to you, so that you can show that you're professional. And back to this picture, the arrows in yellow are two people who live in two different cities who have helped us in our career. Latin American studies, right? So they're interested in Spanish. One of them connected us with her kid's school, and we got a gig there. And the other one ended up having working with the theater and helped us get a gig in a different city. And all the people who don't have arrows are people that I have not kept in touch with. And that means that those are opportunities that I missed out on. So I don't want y'all to make the same mistakes I have. Stay in touch. Everybody on the council, stay in touch with each other. In 10 years, 15 years, Erik said he's been working in this career for 35 years. Somebody or multiple of you are going to be working at really cool agencies and really cool, maybe for the state, maybe for the city, maybe for a big nonprofit, and you're going to help each other. All of those people that you meet in high school and college and classes that you're taking, other extracurriculars, stay in touch with them, because you don't know when those where those people are going to end up, and they might be helping you down the road. And so, in that spirit, I have a stay in touch challenge. Erik also shared his email address or contact information. So this is going to be a double challenge. Send me and send Erik an email in 2 to 6 weeks. There's my contact information, and just introduce yourself. Remind us about this day. Bring a little nugget of what you learned from today. Tell us about yourself, what you are up to, and stay in touch. So that's my challenge to you, and that's my time. Thanks, friends. And
Thank you so much.